Hello and welcome into this IdahoSports.com special. It's the 2024 Boys Basketball State Tournament Preview Extravaganza. We are coming to you live tonight on the IdahoSports.com YouTube channel, Facebook page, Twitter account, Instagram account, and also the good old-fashioned way at IdahoSports.com. If you just click GameStreams, you can tune into our preview special there as well if you're not a social media buff. My name is Brandon Baney. We will be bringing in our panel of expert broadcasters throughout the night to break down all 6 classifications, 1A, D2, all the way to 5A. That's right. We're starting with the 1A, D2 state preview tonight. So let's bring in our broadcast crew for the 1A, D2 state tournament. It's the Jones brothers, Gary Jones, Glenn Jones. Gary, welcome aboard.
Hey, I'm glad to be here, buddy.
Glenn, I'd say it's nice to see you, but I don't want to start the show off with a lie.
I know, but hey, you got to go and roll with what you got, Brandon.
That's right. Well, we are rolling with the 1A D2 state tournament preview special to start. We already have our first comment of the night, gentlemen. Pierce likes to remind me, still snowing in Pocatello. Yeah.
Oh, man.
No longer a Pocatello resident. I now live in North Idaho, where it actually has rained more this year than it's snowed. But overall, I think a pretty good weekend weather-wise for travel to the Boys State Tournament. And if you are in the comments, you're a 1A D2 fan, I want to hear from you. Give your favorite team, your favorite player, your favorite coach, your favorite school a shout-out, or ask us a question. Throw it in the comments. We'll throw it up on the screen. I want to hear from all my 1A D2 fans. And while we get going here, gentlemen, let's take a look at this 1A D2 bracket. Here's what it looks like, guys. This tournament will take place at Caldwell High School starting on Thursday, 4 versus 5 to start. It's Rockland and Cascade. Then the number 1 Mushers from Camas County will take on Clark Fork, the number 8 seed. The 2 and 7 up then, it's Kendrick and Deary. White Pine rivals head-to-head in the opening round. And then Garden Valley, the 3 against Water Springs, the 6. Gary, what's the first thing that jumps out to you when you look at this bracket?
Probably 5 teams from last year are back. And the one that is probably, Camas County is a new one, but it's Kendrick that comes back, defending state champs. They had 1 senior last year, Jagger Hewitt. And they won a couple close games. The semifinal and the final were just 2-point victories, but still, they won it. They got a lot of experience coming back. I think the seeding's right, though. I think the other good team is Camas County. Camas County, Garden Valley's got a good record, 22, but Camas County already beat them by 15. Camas County beat Rockland, Cascade, and Garden Valley. So I think the 1 and 2s they figured out correctly. Now we'll see how it pans out on the floor.
Yep. Already comments rolling in here. Aaron Held. Shout out to Abe Held from Rockland. Such a key player last year and now stepping up into a leadership role. Let's do this, Rockland. And here's Caitlin Severson. Go Water Springs. Yes, East Idaho well represented with both the Warriors and the Bulldogs. They actually met on Saturday at state last year in the consolation final. I was on the call for that game last year. It was a really fun battle. Glenn, I'll put the bracket up on the screen again here and ask you the same question. What's the first thing that jumps out to you when you look at this bad boy?
I think it's going to be an extremely competitive a tournament the entire way through. I was looking at all 8 teams. There's 74 upperclassmen spread out amongst these 8 teams. Every single team in this division has seniors and juniors top to bottom. I looked at the schedules at the rosters that came in a little later. Several teams have added, they've expanded their roster, brought up some JV players, but throughout the season, from what I looked at, I didn't see any freshmen contributing throughout the year. They might have come up here and there, but by and large, it's heavily loaded with seniors, juniors, and a sprinkling of sophomores, and now they have expanded, and there are a few freshmen. So with all that leadership up and down, I mean, anything can happen in this tournament. I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's going to be highly competitive.
Couple of really good sophomores in our players to watch segment that we'll get to here in just a moment. Here is a comment from Cody Thurston. Go get it, Ramblers. Gary, Cascade has been a kind of an annual participant at state the past couple of years. They lost to Garden Valley in the District 3 championship game. They fought through, though, and beat Horseshoe Bend in the third place game to earn their spot at state. That's another. Last year, Cascade and Council met, district rivals, in that third place match. And so for the Ramblers, they're kind of making habit of this, of getting to state. The question is can they advance on that right side of the bracket and find some success?
Well, they certainly had a battle with Garden Valley. They won 2 out of 3, but the best one was the district championship was double overtime, and I think it was just a point or two difference. So, and Garden Valley is 21-2. Mike Tackar, broadcasting friend, sends us stuff all the time. His sister's Bobby Hazeltine, the great coach at Troy, and then at Walla Walla now. He told me a story. He was at the 1974 state championship game. It was Camas County and Clark Fork. They met for the state championship on March 9th, 1974 in Booth Hall in Lewiston. And Camas County won 76-57. So is my math correctly? This will be the 50th anniversary of this game coming up, and these guys are playing each other again. Mike was at that game, said he was 9 years old.
That's
Nice.
an incredible stat. And here is Max Oswald, who covers Clark Fork for the Bonner County Daily Bee up there in Bonner County, North Idaho. Let's go Wampus Cats. Now, Gary, this 8 seed, these Wampus Cats aren't typical 8 seed. They are a district champion. They had to go beat North Gem in a state play-in game on Saturday. Glenn, you were talking about, all these rosters have a lot of seniors. This is the year for Clark Fork, right? They've kind of pushed all their chips to the middle of the table. They are led by a group of really talented seniors who have gotten Clark Fork over the hump in terms of getting to state. And so now this is kind of the chance for the Wampus Cats to shock the world.
And that's going to be a really great game, the second one we have on our docket at 2:00. And I challenge anybody in the rest of the division to come up with 2 better mascots on opening day than the Wampus Cats versus the Mushers. And I've got more on those mascots, but you got to tune in for the broadcast. But the Wampus Cats and the Mushers at 2:00, it's going to be a wild one.
Yeah, can't give it all away here on the preview show for sure. How about this, guys? St. Mary's boys basketball tuning in. Our 2A preview coming up in a little bit. The Lumberjacks will be cheering on the Kendrick Tigers. There's definitely a connection there with Tim Silflo, the Kendrick coach. Has ties to the St. Mary's community, and it's a brotherhood for sure with Kendrick and St. Mary's. And here's Chad Heimgartner. Gary, I wonder if he's related to Harley Heimgartner. Played for that Kendrick girls team that won state just 2 weeks ago. He says, go Tigers. Let's see if you can match the girls team. Yeah, whenever, the girls team goes out and wins state, that's a good motivator for the boys to keep it up and do the same.
Yeah, there's quite a few through the years that have done the sweep, and Kendrick has the chance. The thing I'm looking forward to Kendrick is, I think it's Nathan Twite. He was that's his first name, right, Glenn? Nathan?
Yep.
Nathan, yes.
He won our player of the game last year as a freshman. A tournament MVP, not player of the game, tournament or the whole tournament when Kendrick won it.
Right.
And when we both looked at each other and said, he's the obvious choice, we go, it doesn't matter that he's a freshman. But this is incredible that a freshman can do it. Now, I taught at school for 32 years. And even yourself, if you look at your freshman year picture and your senior year picture and how different they are, what I'm looking forward to is seeing this kid develop over the next 4 years. If he's that good as a freshman, he's got to keep improving. How good is he going to be when he's a senior? And Kendrick's got such a program going. If they're at state all 4 of his years, wouldn't surprise me a bit. So it'll be interesting to see how much more mature he looks now that he's a sophomore.
Well, next year would have to be in the 1A D1 ranks. Kendrick is moving up a classification level next year. But, man, football champs, girls basketball champs, now trying to do it in boys basketball. And, oh, by the way, Kendrick and Camas County met in the state championship game in football this past year. And it kind of seems like they're on similar paths. But as we pull up this bracket, guys, we've got Rockland and Cascade. That's going to be a really fun first-round matchup. 2 teams that have been to state a lot over the past couple of years. Rockland, of course, has Teague Matthews. Can Cascade counteract that size? On the bottom half of the bracket, to me, the most intriguing matchup of the opening round is Garden Valley and Water Springs. Water Springs has some long, lean athletes. We know Garden Valley's got a lot of height as well with Trustin Brown and, some of those guys. Gary, how do you feel this 3 versus 6 matchup goes?
Yeah, that it will be an interesting matchup. They've already played each other, though, once this year, I believe. Garden Valley beat Water Springs by 4. So you see what a close game it was.
Right.
So it's what I always did when I was a coach and we made it to state. I'd say, guys, it doesn't matter if we're the best team right now. The state champion is going to be the team that plays the 3 best games. Might be number 1 seed, might be number 5 seed. It could be Water Springs. It's just who's going to play well at state when the pressure's on.
Caitlin says, so excited to watch our boys play. That is Water Springs. And it's really remarkable. The Warriors had to remake almost their entire program. They lost the top scorer in school history in Daniel Canfield, who graduated last year. They lost Drew Plocker, a great all-around talented athlete. And they've plugged in some guys. Ryan Demkowitz is a really good sophomore. Jackson Aldinger, they've got all these guys they've plugged in, and it's been really fun to watch them develop. Here's Michelle in the comments. Get after it, Mushers. This is a team that's going to D you up and make life miserable, Glenn. They had a little speed bump at districts that they lost to Dietrich in the first district championship game. And that set up the winner take all, if necessary, game. I think that was a good wake up call for Camas County to kind of get them refocused and realigned. And boy, I wouldn't want to line up against them at state.
No, it certainly was. And I think they played Dietrich 3 times in a span of just like 9 or 10 days or something. They lost that game by 1 point and came back in the championship game and made a statement themselves. But, and I made the point when we were talking earlier, Brandon, in the girls tournament, you got 8 great schools in state tournament, and it just goes for every division. And for me, it's not an upset if a 6 beats a 3 or a 1 beats or an 8 beats a 1, because these are quality teams. They earn their right to be at state, and you got essentially the top 8 teams in the division that are meeting. And when you're dealing with teenagers and traveling and all the other stuff and playing in different gyms, it's wide open. Anything can happen. So whoever makes the least amount of mistakes and capitalizes on their opponent's mistakes is going to come out smelling like a rose.
Well, we speaking of players that will get their roses at state, let's take a look at our players to watch here at the 1A D2 tournament. We picked one guy from each team, just a starting point. Not an exhaustive list by any stretch of the imagination here. Here's what we got. Troy Smith from Camas County, Tyler Thurston from Cascade, Ethan Howard, the strapping 6'3" senior from Clark Fork, Tucker Ashmead from Deary, Tacoma Kelly from Garden Valley, Nathan Twite from Kendrick, Teague Matthews of Rockland, and Ryan Demkowitz of Water Springs. Gary, which one of these guys are you most excited to see play? You saw a lot of these guys already from years past, but which guy are you excited to watch this year?
Well, I'm going after the best player in the number 1 seed team, Troy Smith. We got some numbers for you. He's averaging 15.4 points per game, shooting 46% from the field, averaging 7.5 rebounds, almost 4 assists a game, 4 steals, 11 block shots. The guy is obviously an all-around athlete. I'm looking forward to seeing him run up and down the floor. Glenn,
you got a guy you're excited to watch?
Well, yeah, there's actually a couple of them. Tyler Thurston, I think he can throw up threes like Bauman did back in the day, and he's really good. Tacoma Kelly has the best name of all these guys up there. He sounds like he's a Western guy from Oklahoma. You ever met up with Tacoma Kelly? No, and I don't want to, man. He's good. But the guy I got my eye on is Nathan Twite from Kendrick. 18.1 points per game, 5.7 rebounds, nearly 2.5 steals, nearly 2.5 assists, 52% from the floor he's shooting. He scored 399 points so far this year, with more yet to come. This guy, as Gary said earlier, was the MVP last year. How can he top it? Back-to-back MVPs would be a good way to top what he did last year.
Okay, it's a good couple of teasers there for some of the talent we'll see on display here at the 1A D2 state tournament. Let's talk about, here's Caitlin from Water Springs again. Let's go, Ryan. Shout out there. Okay, guys, it is time to make your predictions. Let's pull up that bracket one more time. First of all, Gary, give me a dark horse. We like Camas County, we like Kendrick. If it's not one of those two that's in the finals, who's a potential sleeper in this bracket?
Well, I guess I'd say Garden Valley. Because they have a very good record, and the problem is they've lost to Camas County by 17. So they're going to have to somebody's going to have to catch Camas County and Kendrick if they're going to be an upset on a bad day where they don't play well. Camas County, I'll tell you one thing. They started their season with only 3 home games out of 14. Their first 14 games, they were on the road for 11 of them. So they know what it's like to be on the road. They didn't have a lot of home games. And the other hot team for me is Kendrick. They're the longest winning streak coming in. Kendrick's run 12 games in a row. So if you're going to beat one of those two teams, A, you're going to have to play really well, and B, you're going to have to hope they kind of have an off night, because I think they're the cream of the crop here in the 1AD2. Okay,
so you like Camas, you like Kendrick. If they met, do you have a gut feeling on who would come out on top?
Here's what I don't want to do, Brandon. You're going to try to make me predict, and I refuse to do it. I can't. I have to ignore my boss.
Okay.
Because we, especially in the 1As, we sit amongst all these people, and I don't want them to think I'm biased in any way, shape, or form. So on paper, Camas County, Kendrick, that's as far as I'm going to go. I don't want to pick. Now, you ask me any other division that I'm not doing, I'm all in.
Okay, fair enough. I'll let you guys off the hook then. Here's a couple more shout outs before we get out. Sam says, let's go, Nathan. Nathan Twite from Kendrick. Sam, what's going on? Glad you're tuning in tonight. Matthew Arnold says, watch out for Cascade. He would know. He's actually a McCall Donnelly parent, but McCall Donnelly hosted the district tournament, so he got to see all these teams from District 3 play. And then here's Shug Bradshaw. Teague Matthews is the man. Yes, the football commit to the great state of Utah, and a 6'5" behemoth as well. Gary Jones
last year.
Yeah, he can elevate and dunk. Yep, for sure. All right, Gary Jones, Glenn Jones. We're looking forward to your call of the 1A D2 state tournament from Caldwell High School. Gentlemen, thanks for hopping on. We appreciate it.
Our pleasure.
All right. Big thanks to all of the 1A D2 fans that came in. One more before we head out the door. Ryan Hatfield. Troy Smith's perimeter defense is completely suffocating. The best I've seen at state. That's a good way to describe it for sure. Yeah, Camas County is going to be a tough out for sure. Okay, we will take a quick break and come back with our 1A D1 state tournament preview. So stay tuned for that. You're watching the 2024 Idaho High School Boys Basketball State Tournament Preview Special on IdahoSports.com.
Dear all-wheel drive, let's show the road what we've got. Yours, Toyota.
Toyota has 22 all-wheel drive and four-wheel drive vehicles, more than any other brand. Toyota, let's go places.
Welcome back to the IdahoSports.com Boys Basketball State Tournament Preview Special. Brandon Baney joined now by Joel Richardson. Joel, you and I are going to be on the call for the 1A D1 State Tournament. What's going on, Joel?
I'm good. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All good? Great. I got a nice halo above my head. I'm feeling very angelic. Everything we say is just going to be spot on. We're going to predict the whole tournament. Nothing like the Jones guys. We're just going to predict everything, Brandon.
I love it. I think that's going to be, that's a perfect way to set it up. This is the first time you've been a part of one of these. And so it's really fun to get you in here. Already a comment before we could even look at the bracket or anything. And of course, it's from Lapway, Josh Henry. Lapway Wildcats and Lakeside Knights for the 1A D1 championship. This year, the Wildcats will take back the title. Case Why Not has grown into a powerful player from last year, and he will be just too much all tournament. Yeah, it's going to be interesting for sure. Let's take a look at this bracket, though. So for those that haven't seen the official pairings here, the 1A D1 tournament going to take place at Valley View High School right out of the gates, 4 versus 5, Butte County and Oakley. Then it's number 1 Lapway against number 8 Victory Charter. And then the second half of the day, number 2 Potlatch against number 7 Valley. And then the 3 versus 6 Lakeside and Liberty Charter. Joel, number one thing that jumps out to you when you look at this bracket?
Lapway. Lapway and Potlatch really, but really Lapway, what are we going to see? I think we're going to see a lot of their star player, Case Wynot. Look, they lost it last year in what was it, double, triple overtime thriller, or a single overtime. I think Lapway they stick out, and then Potlatch. I think if I'm an East Idaho guy, right, live out here in Pocatello. But I think a lot of 1A would love to see, if you're like a true 1A fan, 1A D1, you want to see Lapway and Potlatch go at it in the final. I think that'd be a great final. Potlatch maybe gets a chance to upset Lapway. They haven't been able to this year, right? The closest they got was, I think, 12 points in the second to last game. So I'd love to see a Potlatch Lapway rematch. Same, they're in the same district for that championship game. But I will say, Brandon, Lapway, Potlatch got to be careful, right? Maybe Victory Charter Valley. We'll see about those two teams, but that second day, it's always tricky getting to that championship game.
Yeah, it's tough for sure. And I would say the matchup I kind of want to see, and I think a lot of people, is the rematch of last year's championship, Lapway and Lakeside. They complement each other so well. They do a lot of the same things. They're very active defensively. They like to get out and run in transition. Star power. I mean, you look at the starting lineups for both teams, and it's just like dripping with star power. I think, if Lakeside and Potlatch meet in the semifinals, the question will be, can Potlatch slow down Lakeside and kind of grind them to a halt? But in that top half of the bracket, I think if it's Butte County and Lapway, Butte County, they've got 10 or 11 guys, Joel, that have all played like pretty regularly. Coach Mindy Gamet runs a deep bench, and I think she did that with the idea of, hey, if we get to state and we see a Lapway or a Lakeside, we got to have bodies to withstand the run and gun that those teams like to do. For sure. It's going to be interesting. More comments coming through in the chat here. Here's a vote 77. Go Potlatch Loggers. And how about this, Joel? We've got an actual player in the chat. Daniel Juarez, the starting center for the Valley Vikings. I play for Valley, and we are coming. Let's talk about this Valley Vikings team. They had lost to Oakley in the regular season finale to take second in the regular season conference standings in District 4. They get revenge in the district championship game, though. And, I kind of looked at the back half of the season. They kind of sputtered a little bit early on. They were missing Pedro Robles with an injury, but since he came back, Valley has only lost like twice or maybe 3 times. It's been pretty impressive.
Yeah, it has been. I like Daniel Juarez. That it was 6'1" forward. He's a senior. He's got the talent and also the leadership. It's huge when you get down to these tournament games. It's so important when you have that senior leadership. Some of these teams in this tournament are kind of young, but Valley, they have a couple of seniors and a couple of juniors, so mostly upperclassmen leading that charge. So yeah, as I've been looking into this Valley Vikings team, doing a little bit of research, Brandon, I like Valley for sure.
Okay, so if we look at the matchup here, Valley is the 7 against Potlatch the 2. I got to be honest. I think Valley might be underseeded a little bit. I would probably slot Valley ahead of Liberty Charter. No disrespect there. And also, they did beat Oakley for the district championship. District results are supposed to have some weight and some meaning, I thought, but I don't know. Oakley still got in ahead of them. That's a very dangerous matchup for Potlatch right away. If there was going to be a first round upset, and I don't really call a 5 over a 4 an upset, I think Valley's the team that could do it.
Yeah, no, definitely. Potlatch, again, I would love to see Potlatch Lapway, but Potlatch has got to be careful because Valley is going to be dangerous, definitely.
Potlatch's problem is depth. They play about 7 guys a night, maybe 8. They had 2 players they were counting on that were taller players. Both suffer season-ending injuries. Now the players they have are dynamic, right? You've got the Lovell cousins, Chase and Everett. You've got Jackson Vowels, who is silky smooth, big, tall forward at 6'5". Jack Clark, who was the quarterback on the football field. He runs the point. There's a lot of quarterbacks that are point guards in this tournament, Joel. I don't know if you noticed that. Kyler Robinson from Oakley, Josh Hardy from Valley, and then you look at Potlatch and Jack Clark. So you've got the QBs going into the point guard role, which will give a boost up there too. Let's talk about the District 3 teams for a second here. Liberty Charter, Victory Charter. The storyline with District 3 in 1A D1 is always going to be, can somebody get a win in the opening round? It has been a very long time since somebody from District 3 has gotten onto that semifinal side of the bracket. If you had to pick who's got the no path is easy, especially for Victory Charter having to play Lapway right away. But is there a way forward for them? That's another team that's low on numbers.
Yeah, I'm gonna have a hard time if I'm Victory Charter beating Lapway. I think Liberty Charter has the better chance of beating Lakeside, but Lakeside they're still really good. Got a lot of leftovers from last year's championship team, but I think Liberty Charter with they're the two Lukes, right? One's sharpshooter, the other Luke Starner. He's a low block perimeter scorer. They have a nice mixture of those two Lukes who can do damage. If anyone's going to upset, I think it's going to be the Liberty Charter Patriots versus the Victory Charter Vipers.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting in the two Lukes, right? Luke Thomas out front, the guard, Luke Starner inside. And then, Victory Charter's got a kid that people in District 3 know, but statewide maybe, Noah Palomares. Kid is incredible. He's only 5'7". If he was a couple inches taller, because he's got the skill and the shooting ability, he's a player that's going to be really fun to watch. And we'll talk about our players to watch here in just a moment. Here's a comment from Howard Wood, hoping Butte County can put together some games for this group of seniors and to build the program for the underclassmen. The community is excited and will be following. Joel, I shared this with you earlier. I saw on social media, the Butte County School District, basically they were going to have so many staff members and so many students heading over to state on Thursday for that opening round game. They basically said, hey, should we just cancel school for Thursday and make it up later? They kind of sent out a survey to everybody in the district and parents and stuff, and like resounding yes, cancel school. And they said, okay, school's been canceled. Last one out of Arco, turn out the lights.
Love it. Let's all go to Boise. And if you can't get to Boise, hey, join us on IdahoSports.com. We'll be there. I love the no school on Thursday, Friday. We're gonna celebrate. We're gonna follow these boys, dude. Butte County, they're gonna be a hard out. Butte County, Oakley. I said this on my post a couple of days ago when the brackets first came out. Watch out for that 4-5 game. That's gonna be exciting. And that's Butte County, Brandon. Really sorry. They're the champions in football, right? 1A D1 champions in football. Great story there from their player who was hurt badly and he's coming back. So it would be really cool to kind of wrap the bow for the Butte County Pirates to go all the way.
Yeah, that matchup with Butte County and Oakley, those two played for the football championship this past fall. And there's a lot of guys that on both sides, Isaac Cranny and Kyler Robinson and Cooper Beck and Dallin Hardy, all for Oakley. They all played football, and Butte County's got, they've got Gamet and they've got Rafe McAfee, and they've got a lot of guys that played in that football championship game as well. Couple of comments here. Sam says, watch out for Luke Thomas from Liberty Charter. And then here's Michelle, Noah Palomares, tough player. He's strong and a scorer and dangerous. Yes, I agree there. So that 4-5 matchup to me is the most intriguing of the opening round. And you talked about the storyline with Butte County, right? They won their first football championship in school history this past fall. They had to overcome the odds. They had to knock out Oakley, who was looking for their fourth championship in a row, which is just incredible to think about. Yeah. And then off the field, Dylan Waymeyer, of course, had that really scary medical emergency where he collapsed during a football game, had to be taken to the hospital, long road to recovery, was able to come watch Butte County in Holt Arena in a wheelchair on the sideline for that championship game. Obviously still recovering, can't play basketball. Head coach Mindy Gamet says he's actually a guy we were really counting on to be like our center and a post player inside. So we kind of miss him there, but he has been on the bench as basically another coach all season long. So Coach Dylan Waymeyer is going to be there for Butte County this weekend too.
And that's so powerful to have that kind of that brain, and also just that inspiration from the bench. I was there calling the game with Logan Green of the 1A D1 championship game. And when Dylan Waymeyer, Dilly Strong, when he got up from his wheelchair, Brandon, to hoist the trophy, we got a little emotional, Logan and I there did in the booth. So really cool that he's on the bench supporting his team. You talked about those players. Brody Westergaard also. I don't know if you mentioned him. He's a senior. He's a guard. He's averaging 17 points per game. So this Butte County, it took them a while. They had some injuries. Same with Oakley. It took them a few games to get back out of the football shape and into basketball shape, but they're ready to go for sure.
And they almost didn't make it, right? They had to beat Grace in triple overtime at districts, and then Grace beat them coming back through to force the if necessary winner-take-all final game. And Butte County finally put Grace away, and it's the first time Butte County's been at state in a couple of years. Grace has kind of had the run of the league for the last couple of years, so it's nice to see Butte County get to state, and now they'll try to break through. They did win a championship back in 2013 against, ironically enough, Ryan Ball, the coach at Potlatch. He was coaching Kamei at the time. So Ryan Ball's hoping he doesn't see Butte County anywhere on this bracket. Might bring up old wounds. Let's take a look at our 1A D1 players to watch, Joel. We picked one player from each team, just kind of a starting point in the conversation here, but here's what we had. Brody Westergaard from Butte County, you just mentioned him. Tyson Charlie from Lakeside. He is only a sophomore, and he is averaging over 20 points per game. He is the leading scorer for that Lakeside team. Case Wynot from Lapway, all-time leading scorer in Idaho basketball history. Luke Starner from Liberty Charter, Isaac Cranny from Oakley, Jackson Vowles from Potlatch, Pedro Robles from Valley. He's really been the difference since he came back from injury. And then Noah Palomares from Victory Charter. Give me one guy you're really excited to watch this weekend.
I haven't seen, I know it's kind of like a boring pick, but I haven't seen Case play live. I would love to see Case play Case Wynot live. Watch Case Wynot play live. I want to see his versatility. I was watching some games as we prepped for this, and I love how he can switch hands. I love his mid-range game, and he can shoot it from three, but I want to see Case Wynot play live, Brandon. He
essentially averages a triple-double, right? He averages 35-plus points per game, about 12 rebounds per game, and like 9 assists per game. It's really impressive to watch. He's very unselfish. This Lapway team in total is unselfish. They've got Elias Year out. They've got Chris Bonney down low. Joey Payne runs the point. He's a great player as well. A guy I'm really excited to see play in person. I want to see Brody Westergaard. You know, I've seen him play football in person, and I know what kind of dynamic skills he can bring. I want to see what he does on the basketball court. And I'm excited to see Palomares too from Victory Charter. You know, I look at the stats. I've seen him on film, but like he's just a guy I'm really intrigued by. So I think it's going to be really interesting to watch him play for sure.
And let me just add, Brandon, anyone who is the, what is it? The Western Idaho Conference Player of the Year deserves a lot of cred. So yeah, can't wait to watch the Western Idaho Conference Player of the Year from last year play this year, and Noah Palomares.
Yep. Here's Crystal. Wahoo. Go Bro Dog. That's Brody Westergaard. Good luck, boys. Go get him. All right. That's our 1A D1 state tournament preview. We kind of like Lapway, Lakeside, Potlatch, top 3. Do you have a dark horse, Joel, that could break in that's not in that top 3?
Butte County or Valley, but probably Butte County. If either of those are going to break through, I'd go with Butte County.
Okay. I like it. That's good. Joel, I'll see you over there in Boise.
All right, Brandon. Yeah, thanks. Drive safe, and we'll see you in a few days.
Yep, sounds like a plan. Joel and I will be on the call for the 1A D1 state tournament from Valley View High School starting Thursday on IdahoSports.com. All right, we'll take a break and come back for our 2A state tournament preview. I know there's already people lined up in the chat to talk and break down this 2A bracket, so we'll be back in just a moment. You're watching the IdahoSports.com Boys Basketball State Tournament Preview Special on IdahoSports.com.
Dear all-wheel drive, let's show the road what we've got. Yours, Toyota.
Toyota has 22 all-wheel drive and 4-wheel drive vehicles, more than any other brand. Toyota, let's go places.
Welcome back to the IdahoSports.com Boys Basketball State Tournament Preview Special. Let's bring in our 2A State Tournament broadcasters, Lauren Jensen and Paul Kingsbury. Lauren, good to see you.
What's up, guys?
There was a little bit of panic right there, Lauren, when you came on. It was like,
there was?
Yeah, it looked like you panicked a little bit.
Oh, I just unmuted my mic.
Oh,
I just panic when I see you. That's that. It's like,
heart flutters a little bit.
Well, actually, it's more like scary. But, anyways,
Brandon, take over.
You know what's scary? This 2A state field, and you know who's not nervous or caught off guard? This 2A state tournament field, because this thing is absolutely loaded, guys. And I know, generally speaking, the 2A fans are the most vocal on the preview show, and I want to hear from all the 2A fans tonight. If there's a team, if there's a player, if there's a coach you want to give a shout out to, you want to ask these guys a question, throw it in the comments. We'll throw it up on the screen. But let's take a look at this 2A bracket and really start diving into it. The 2A state tournament taking place at Capitol High School there in Boise, and right away, 4 versus 5. District champions from District 6 and District 5. It's North Fremont against West Side. Then you got the number 1 seed, Coal Valley Christian, taking on St. Mary's, the 8th seed. When was the last time you said that about the Lumberjacks? 2 versus 7, Ambrose and Firth. And then Nampa Christian, the 3 seed, Declo, the 6. Lauren, what's the first thing that jumps out to you when you look at this bracket?
Nampa Christian, the 3 seed, and all those WIC teams. I mean, you've got Coal Valley 1, Ambrose 2, Nampa Christian 3, and you could have had New Plymouth, you could have had Melba. So that WIC, it was rough over there for all those teams. They were all in that top 5 all year long. Sprinkle in a couple other teams, but now we get to see how they match up against everybody else across the state.
Yeah,
Paul,
on paper, you should have seen Melba, right?
Yeah.
Except the district tournament happens, and anything can happen in districts. So Nampa Christian breaks through. Sorry, Brandon, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I think a lot of people were surprised that Nampa Christian was the 3 seed, but we were told that district tournament results were going to count in these Max Preps rankings. And if you think about who they took out on their way, Coal Valley and Ambrose and New Plymouth, I mean, those 3 wins right there kind of moved them up to that top 3 seed line, right?
They absolutely earned it. And, a lot of times you look at the district tournament translating into state. Yeah, they eked their way in, but, their conference wasn't strong. Not the 2A WIC this year. At one point, the top 5 of the top 5 teams in the state were all 2A WIC teams, the top 5. And I've never seen that in, my 76 years of doing this. It's just been, I'd never seen it. And to have 3 of those teams on the bracket, 1, 2, 3, it's pretty cool. Now, real quick, before we go any further, speaking of shout outs, I need a shout out to my oldest son, Jackson, who's actually watching this at Fort Polk in Louisiana, getting ready to deploy next month. So he was best camera guy we ever had, producer. He didn't care about sports, so he focused on the job. So I miss having him as my broadcast partner, but it's fun. Love you, bud.
Yeah, and thanks for your service, of course, as well. Definitely. Okay, Pierce in the comments. WIC just beat each other up all year, that Western Idaho Conference. They sure did. It was actually Coal Valley Christian, the number 1 overall seed, Paul, that almost didn't make it to state, right? They had to beat Melba in the 4th place game at districts, and then they had to go play a state play-in game on Saturday as well. They had to play Orofino, the Maniacs, up there in North Idaho. So for Coal Valley, I think losing and stumbling at districts was kind of a good get-right loss for them.
It absolutely was. I've seen them play a couple of times this year against Ambrose once. And they're such a dynamic team. And to see the number 1 seed at state got there by winning a play-in game, it's not a good look, I guess. Good way to put it. It's interesting to have your number 1 seed get there through a play-in game. It is what it is. They're a very good team. You're right. They stumbled in the district tournament. They're here. They're streaky. If they're on, you're not going to beat them. If they're all off, I saw them one night where they were all off, and it was a crazy night. But great shooters all the way around. So yeah, absolutely, it's good to see the WIC. Lauren and I are both 2A WIC guys. Both graduated from New Plymouth, doing the 2A. So we're right at home there.
The other thing is, Brandon, I just. Talking about Nampa Christian coming around and becoming that 3 seed, but they beat Ambrose twice in the regular season. They beat them in that district tournament, but they beat them by 3 as well. And so they're not like a slouch that came out of there and won that district tournament. Those teams were all right there, and they just happened to get hot at the right time.
They're the Rodney Dangerfield of the 2A classification.
Get no respect.
They get no respect.
They've been playing very well for sure. Question from David in the chat. Why can't you guys do the state seedings and not Max Preps? Yeah, okay. I think what we've all kind of agreed is that Max Preps is a good tool to use to help seed state, but there has to be a human element, right? I think it's a combination of rankings and humans. Computers alone, you can get some wonky stuff. It's kind of like the NCAA, right? When they seed the March Madness tournament, right? They have all these computer numbers they use, but then it's also humans that get together and seed it out. And so,
Right.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the boilerplate response for Max Preps tonight.
Well, I just want to throw this out there.
Go ahead,
quick,
Paul, sorry.
For the 2As, an interesting thing, they cut off midnight Saturday night is when they cut off everything, and that's where they get the rankings over the weekend. Rankings came out again, just automatically released on Monday, I believe, and not a lot changed. But one thing that did change was St. Mary's and Firth actually swapped. Firth was the 8, and St. Mary's was the 7. So they'd have been on opposite sides of the bracket, and we're not going to get into it, but the records were different. Games were added. Games were taken away from different teams, and that happened on Monday. So it didn't affect the top 6, but it definitely affected St. Mary's and Firth, where they swapped seedings after they'd already been done.
Yeah, and I think they intentionally held back the state play-in games because they didn't want that data point to be considered, right? Just district tournament results, but Firth won a play-in game, so you would think that would only help them. They wouldn't move backwards in that scenario. But
right, they added that game and they went backwards.
Yeah. Okay. Hey, here's a good reminder from Patty, and this will be a good pivot to what I wanted to ask Lauren here. She said, remember, in the state girls basketball tournament, you guys loved the Boise teams, and not one made it past the semis for sure. And so, Lauren, I want to ask you about that 4 versus 5 matchup up top. North Fremont and Westside. Those are 2 teams that I think are pretty similar. They defend the heck out of the basketball. They're loaded with athletes. They've got good coaches. Shannon Hill at North Fremont, Tyler Brown at Westside, who's been there forever. That, to me, is the most interesting first-round matchup.
I think Patty's mistaken a little bit. I think Paul loves the Boise teams in that girls tournament. I was on the other side of things. I actually was picking like North Fremont and Grangeville or something. Soda Springs, I think, actually. So I picked to win it all. So I don't know.
Cole Valley.
I was still wrong.
Cole Valley, Grangeville. I picked Cole Valley, Grangeville in the final.
Yeah, I was still wrong too. But man,
and that's Meridian, by the way. Cole Valley.
But that first matchup there, North Fremont, they're a good 4 team, like a good 4 seed right there. They're the district champion out of that District 6 conference. They're a tough team. Like you mentioned, Coach Shannon Hill, he's won a couple titles. He's got that program moving over the last 10 years. They're a great team, and Westside's going to have their hands full. And if North Fremont wins, whoever wins between Cole Valley and St. Mary's is going to have a tough go of it the next night.
Yeah, can we talk about this, Paul? I think Cole Valley, by getting the number 1 seed, actually got the more difficult path. Does that make sense? Because you've beaten Ambrose this year. You have beaten Nampa Christian, not at districts, but you beat them in the regular season. Firth is well coached. Declo's kind of a wild card, but you look up top, and North Fremont and Westside are both really good teams that Cole Valley, I don't know how they match up. And then St. Mary's is an 8. This has got to be the most dangerous 8 seed in the history of 8 seeds. All Brian Chase has done in 10 years at St. Mary's is taken the Lumberjacks to state all 10 years. And oh, by the way, the first 9 years, he's taken St. Mary's to the semifinals. He has never not been in the semifinals at state.
Yeah. And it's like Princeton. Right? Not that St. Mary's is Princeton, but they're the Princeton of this bracket. It would not be a shocker to see them go to the semifinals. It'd be a shocker to Cole Valley, and they're a very good team. But St. Mary's also, basically you can throw the seedings out the window in this 2A tournament. Declo is a team that I could see going into the semis. All of these teams, it's going to be going into the opening tip. Lauren and I on day 1 are going to be going, man, I don't know who's going to win. No clue. It's 8 really, really good teams. And it might be the most fun bracket in the tournament.
Yep. Here's a comment from Mike Ridgway. Congrats to Coach Jacoby Fox and the Declo Hornets. Good luck at state. Lauren, Declo and Wendell split in the regular season. They both went 3-1. They both swept the community school, the Cutthroats, and then they split with each other. And so I liked what they did at districts. They have the best of 3 series. Game 1, since they both tied in the regular season and beat each other. They played at a neutral site, Valley High School, and then whoever won that game inherited home court advantage for the remaining games. And so Declo won the neutral site game. Declo won the second game. The final score doesn't indicate how close it was, but Wendell almost got to state and not Declo. So they come in battle tested, I think, and ready to go.
Yeah, and they play, with that small conference, obviously, we talk about that a lot with this District 4 small conference in the 2As, and it's kind of up in the air. Like, how good are they? Did they just beat up on each other? Are they a really great team? Wendell was really great. Did they just kind of split, like you said, and they're going to match up really good with some of these other teams at state? And so, yeah, I think they're battle tested. They're ready to roll coming into the tournament.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how this all shakes out. Here is, Lindsay from Cascade, Cole Valley Christian. They're good, but not sure about a 1 seed considering how they got there. Yeah, like you said, Paul, it's a weird look to have your number 1 overall seed. Almost not. It's almost as weird as not to go back to the 1A D1 bracket because we just did that preview, but it's almost as weird as seeing the defending state champions from Lakeside having to earn their way back to state via a play-in game. That was just weird, right?
It's very weird, but the way it works now, you take everything into account. I mean, you know how it works. I mean, if you're not, go to the Idaho Sports homepage, click on tournament coverage, and go back and watch that Max Preps deep dive we did for a prep cast where we talked a lot about how everything works. Go back and watch it. It's a good time.
The other thing is, though, let's say we're not using Max Preps on these seedings and we're doing something else, how would you change this bracket? Like, where would you seed everybody? Because maybe Cole Valley won, maybe they slipped to 2 or 3, and Ambrose, I don't know who ends up the 1 seed, because I don't think Nampa Christian, even though they beat Cole Valley, I don't think they deserve to be in the 1 seed based on their body of work throughout the season. So it's tough to seed this tournament.
It really is. And then like this tournament more than any other, the numbers are kind of inconsequential. You can kind of, like Paul said, throw them out the window.
I didn't use that big of a word because I don't even know what that means. So
inconsequential. Okay. Scott says, if nothing else, watch the Max Preps deep dive for the Christmas sweaters. Yeah, we did record that in December. That is true. Okay. Pierce says, better hear some picks for this tourney. We'll get to them in just a second. First, it's our 2A players to watch. We picked 1 from each team. Here's what we've got. Tyson Hughes from Ambrose, Eli Kingery from Cole Valley Christian, Emmett Gibby from Declo, Gabe Nelson from Firth, great player underneath, Donovan Wiles from Nampa Christian, who's been on a heater since district tournament play started, Jed Hill from North Fremont, Wyatt Holmes of St. Mary's, Eli Brown of Westside. Paul, who's the guy you're most excited to watch?
I think it's probably a tie between Tyson Hughes and Eli Kingery.
They're guys you've already seen.
I know, but I didn't get to see Tyson Hughes at his best. The games I saw, he was a little bit off, but I know when he's on, he's on. And they're at Ambrose, they've got 3 of their top guys are lefties, which I'm a lefty, you're a lefty. It's great to watch. But then Kingery, they're at Cole Valley, 16 points a game. He's a stud. I don't know. The Gibster, they're at Declo. He's almost averaging a double-double. All right, if I can't go with those 2, I'm going to say Wyatt Holmes. 54 assists, 11 points a game, 2 block shots, big guy with 54 assists. How great's that?
It's that team basketball that St. Mary's prides themselves on. Lauren, one guy you're excited to watch here?
I've been out of Eastern Idaho now, at least out of Northeast Idaho, over in the Sugar City area for a couple of years now. I really want to see what Jed Hill looks like out of North Fremont. They've had some great players come out of there. They always have a fun offense. And I just want to see what Jed Hill looks like now that he's a couple years older since I've seen him last.
And of course, Jed and his twin brother, Jacob Hill, right? We'll spark a debate in the how come they picked you and not me?
Yeah.
An interesting
no sibling fights.
Right.
An interesting thing about these players to watch, guys, they're all seniors except Emmett Gibby. He's a junior. So it's a very senior heavy tournament this year. Last year, there were a lot of juniors in the statewide that were studs, which obviously translates to this year being seniors. So 7 of those 8 players to watch are all seniors with, and I got permission to call him the Gibster, by the way. It's not his official nickname, but I'm hoping it sticks.
We'll see. Nicknames are kind of an organic thing. You can't force it. So we'll see how that works out for you this weekend. Okay, Pierce demanded it, so let's get official picks here. Paul, what do you got?
Gary didn't have to.
Well, I felt bad for Gary. I don't feel bad for you.
All right, I actually understand that. Well, crud. We had that one comment where people actually remember what we picked. I didn't think anyone was actually watching these things.
And that's the thing. Like, don't take it personally if we don't pick your team. We do this for fun. And like I said, we love being wrong. If we're wrong, we got a lot wrong in girls hoops. We come back and own it for sure. So
yeah. And we great friends in St. Mary's, right? Since they've been back every year, Brian Chase, coaching staff, love them. All these guys. So, but I don't see Cole Valley losing. So I honestly think it might be a Cole Valley Ambrose final. I picked Cole Valley for girls, and I feel like I'm a Cole Valley homer here, but I'm really not. I just if someone's going to come out other than Ambrose, Nampa Christian, if someone comes out other than Cole Valley, I think it's going to be a North Fremont. But if I have to pick, like you're saying, I'm going to say Cole Valley Ambrose in the final.
Okay, Lauren.
Well, I'm just going to be opposite of Paul here just because. So we cover our bases. One of us is going to get it right, hopefully. But I'm going to go North Fremont because I agree with Paul. If anybody besides Cole Valley is going to come out of the top half, I think it's going to be North Fremont to come out of there into the final. On the bottom, man, I had Ambrose, but I think, Nampa Christian's hot. They've already beat them. They're on a roll here going out of district tournament. So I'm going to go North Fremont, Nampa Christian. Plus, we have two teams with two names in the final. That's what I want. North Fremont, Nampa Christian.
Susan says so predictable. I'm sure that was
which one?
I think it's Paul.
Is that for you, Paul?
Listen, I'm a small school guy. I grew up in New Plymouth. I live in Cuna. Okay. I'm not a Boise area homer by any stretch of the imagination. I promise. I've got more friends around the state.
There it is.
I'm gonna have to shave and have plastic surgery before Thursday now.
It's all good, Paul. You're not on trial. Selfishly, I want St. Mary's, North Fremont in the semis only because I was there 3 years ago when they played in the semis, and Colby Renner hit the shot of all-time shots for St. Mary's, and just the history with those two, it'd be a lot of fun. So,
I'm going to change my picks. I'm going to say Firth and St. Mary's in the finals.
really lean into it.
Way opposite. You should go west side. Well, I guess you can't do a west side, and
Pierce says, "Don't let him get to you."
Easy for you to say, Pierce. Easy for you to say.
Good positive message to end on. All right. Thanks for tuning into the 2A state tournament preview special. Paul Kingsbury, Lauren Jensen will have the call from Capitol High School this week. We will take a break and we will come back with our 3A state tournament preview right after this. You're watching the 2024 Idaho High School boys basketball state tournament preview special on IdahoSports.com.
Dear all-wheel drive, let's show the road what we've got. Yours, Toyota.
Toyota has 22 all-wheel drive and four-wheel drive vehicles, more than any other brand. Toyota, let's go places.
Welcome back to the IdahoSports.com boys basketball state tournament preview special. Time to break out the Class 3A brackets. Let's bring on our broadcast team. It's Logan Green and Lance Taylor. Lance, as soon as I came on to bring you on, I saw you get up and walk off camera. I was a little concerned there for a second.
See, I was tying flies tonight because I'm going to fish the Owyhee River while I'm out there. So you see that?
Okay.
Thanks for the invite, Lance. I must have missed it. It's weird.
What?
I don't have a text message saying, "Hey, Logan, come fishing with me" in my phone. I was double checking. I didn't see it.
Hey, I'm all for those who invite themselves.
This is awkward.
All right. Well, before we get too deep into fishing talk here, let's break out this 3A bracket and break it down. And all the 3A fans that are in the chat, I want to hear you give your favorite team, your favorite player, your favorite coach a shout out. If you got a question, throw it in the chat. We'll throw it up on the screen. I want to hear from all those 3A diehards. Here's the bracket. These games taking place at Meridian High School right away. 4 versus 5. McCall, Donnelly, and Teton. Those are 2 district champions from districts 3 and 6. Snake River, the 1. They'll play Homedale, the 8. And then 2 versus 7. Bonners Ferry and Kimberly. And 3 versus 6. Filer and Marsh Valley. Logan, what's the number one thing that jumps out to you when you look at this bracket?
How hard it is. I mean, there is not, you look at the first round, Kimberly as a 7 seed, they are a solid team. It is going to be hard. Anybody that makes it to the championship game is going to have to earn it, right? McCall, Donnelly, and Teton in the first round, like you said, 2 state champions, or it's 2 district champions, excuse me. But Teton was a team that, I thought coming into the year and throughout the year that Max Prep's rankings would spit them out at a 2 or a 3, but to see them come in as a 5 is very surprising. This is a loaded tournament. I mean, me and Lance did the same exact tournament last year, and a lot of these teams are the same. Bonners Ferry, they've got a lot of the same guys as last year, and they made it to the finals. Snake River has a lot of those same pieces. Teton has a lot of those same pieces. It is loaded from top to bottom, and it's going to be very competitive.
Lance, what jumps out to you when you look at this?
Well, I see a lot of the same things that Logan sees, and I see some potential first round upsets. That's what, anytime you got a field this heavy, I see some first round upsets. I mean, you look at Teton and McCall. Well, that's your 4-5 game. That should be really statistically your best game of the first day anyway, because you got the 2 closest teams on there. But you look at a Kimberly, and that's someone that Logan mentioned. A lot of the losses that Kimberly had, you got to remember Cummins was out during that time with the foot injury. Larson was out for a part of that. They're both back now. Larson came back before Cummins did, but that's a different team than the team that lost a bunch of those games. Now, I'm not saying they're going to step up and knock off Bonners Ferry, but I think that is one that could potentially be an upset in that first round. Marsh Valley, very, very scrappy team. One thing about Marsh Valley, and I've watched them 3 times this year, Marsh Valley will not lose a game because they got outworked. Marsh Valley will outwork almost anybody they play. If they lose, they're not a tall team. If they lose, maybe it's because they just got beat by a better team, But Marsh Valley is going to test everything you have. And you look at that first round against Filer, a team that Rob Anderson has playing extremely well. That's a very interesting matchup as well. And again, I'm not saying Marsh Valley wins that, but Marsh Valley is good enough to step up and make a really solid game out of Filer.
Yep. Isaac Bowman in the chat says, coming out of the most competitive district in 3A, Marsh Valley could potentially make a run on the bottom half of the bracket. Mm-hmm. Should be a competitive tournament overall for sure. Here's a shout out for the Homedale Trojans for Lucas Hall. Matthew Arnold says Teton got rolled by Cole Valley, and then McCall Donnelly beat Cole Valley. Logan, this is an exercise you love doing. Team A beat Team B.
I do. By the way, you can trace the College of Idaho to beating UConn this year, which is awesome, right? That's my favorite. That's my favorite.
I'm willing to throw money down on that right now.
All right, Lance, let's do it. No, so I mean, yeah. If you look at it, right, you think that McCall is really good, and that's why it surprises me that they came where they came, right? And at this seed, a 4 seed. But here's the worry that I have with McCall Donnelly, right? Is that the league was not as competitive as it has been in the past. It is what it is, right? You saw Fruitland go to their play-in game against Kimberly and get walloped, right? And Fruitland was a team that was there. Now, granted, McCall Donnelly did kind of run away with the district, right? District 3, they were in control of the SRV. Really wasn't ever a doubt that they were going to come away with it. But it is, who are you playing during this last month of the season versus who were they playing the last month of the season? And, a team like Teton has had to go up against Sugar, has been going up against Snake River throughout the season, and, has had these punches and in going lately. While McCall Donnelly, maybe not as much late. That would be my only thing to look at there. And Teton, they are just a fast team. And I know I love to play that game, Brandon, but it really is based on matchups, right? So, you might have a matchup that doesn't exactly fit in one game, but it helps you in another game. So it's is going to be awesome. I think that I can't believe that game is a first round game. It's going to be like way to kick off the tournament.
Pretty remarkable. Let's talk about the top 2 seeds. Here's a shout out from Alicia Higginson. Snake River, go Luke Higginson. He crossed 1,000 points in his career earlier this year. Of course, they've got Marcus Coombs, the son of head coach Robert Coombs. Kind of quietly, he doesn't like to boast about his accolades, Lance, but he's very quietly like one of the greatest coaches in Idaho history. I mean, he's won
I'll
over.
tell you what. I know most of these coaches at the 3A level, and I know most of them personally. And you guys know how highly I regard all of them, but especially Bob Coombs. I mean, Bob is one of those guys that I love the way he coaches. Bob is an accountability coach, and he's a coach that demands high execution and high discipline from his teams, and his teams respond with that. I mean, you see years where obviously this year they've got a lot of talent. They've got a lot of size, a lot of balance on this team, but you see how competitive Bob's teams are, even on years when they maybe don't have a lot of talent or don't have as much talent as they had this year. Bob Coombs is, to me, the guy that kind of stands out, amongst that group. And I've always loved the way that Bob coaches. I love his teams, and frankly, I think it's Snake River's tournament to lose. I mean, Snake River, this is a team that was not only good to start the season, they got better as the season went on. When you look at the size of their team and the things that they can do, and a Luke Higginson that is such a great player, Coombs, that's only a junior and it continues to get better. You look at Keaton Kessler with that group as well. This is a great team. And then you add that with a coach like Bob Coombs, is a great coach. I mean, that's a tough double-edged sword for any other team to overcome.
I mean, he's got over 500 career wins. I don't know if anybody else in Idaho can even make that claim. It's just incredible to think about. Logan, on the other hand, the other big favorite coming in is Bonners Ferry. Here's Bo Bateman. Bonners Ferry bouncing back. Trey Bateman going to show out. And here's Ryan Skaggs from North Idaho. Asher Williams is him.
Ryan. I was when we were going, I was looking over stuff today, looking at these teams, and man, last year we don't have Sugar Salem here in the room this time, right? It's everybody else's turn, and they were the team last year that had a lot of those older guys, and I'm looking at their rosters, and everybody's back. All these big names that we saw last year in the tournament play big minutes are all back, and that Snake River Bonners Ferry game, I don't know if you remember it, Lance, but that was one of the best games, a semifinal game. There was a controversial goaltend, it came down to the very end. I don't think that play mattered because they tipped the ball right back in. I don't know if it actually mattered, but that's water under the bridge. But that,
by the way, Bob Coombs was right on that. By the way, he was right.
If those two collide for a state championship game, it's going to be awesome. I mean, they have so many great players. Bonner Ferry, like Asher Williams, like they said there, the Batemans, right? It's going to be a dogfight, and anybody, it's going to be great. I think Bonner Ferry honestly has I don't want to say that, but I think they've got the quote easier path down there than I look up top, because I think that 4-5 winner is going to be a very tough out for Snake River. Not that Snake River can't handle it, just saying, like, I think that game will be more competitive, that team there. But man, Bonners Ferry, I don't see a reason why we won't see them in the championship game. Based on what we've seen throughout the year, what we saw last year at state, they don't leave any doubt in my mind that they could get it done again. Yeah, they've lost 3 times this year to 5A Coeur d'Alene, who's at state, 5A Lake
game too.
Right, 5A Lake City by 4, they're at state, and West Valley High from Spokane by a single point. And they have played Sandpoint, who's at state, Lakeside twice. They have played Pullman from Washington, who's no slouch. They are battle tested and they're ready to go. This Bonners Ferry team is really good. McCall getting some more love. Here's Lindsey Green. Watch out for McCall Donnelly. And we also had on Instagram, guys, a shout out as well from Shannon Kershaw 79. McCall Donnelly is hungry and wants this win. So it's going to be interesting to see. Let's put this bracket back up on the screen, guys. We've kind of identified Snake River, Bonners Ferry. Lance, I know Filer is a team you really like a lot as well. And that would be kind of, I think, the next team if you're looking at potential championship picks.
Yeah, Filer won their first game of the season, lost 5 straight after that. And I watched them lose to a Sugar team in Sugar. And then they won every game since then. They are a very, very good team.
Mm-hmm.
Rob Anderson, fantastic coach. Of course, coached at Teton for a number of years, went out to Thermopolis, Wyoming, came back, coach to Idaho's coaching at Filer, just doing a fantastic job for them. I think they are a team that could. Having said that, I think it comes down to Snake River and Bonners Ferry. I think Bonners Ferry, if there is a team that could potentially beat Snake River, I think it is Bonners Ferry, even though I still think Snake River is the best team, and it's theirs to lose. Bonners Ferry is such a very good team. Look what Coach Williams has done. I love those Bonners Ferry kids. Of course, I love the kids from most of these teams anyway. They're just great kids. I've got to know a lot of them. But those Bonners Ferry kids, I've watched this group since they were just freshmen, since they were young, and you see what Coach Williams has done with them. The hard thing with Snake River is, can you overcome not only that skill, but that size? I think Bonners Ferry matches up with anybody, and probably better than most when it comes to skill, but the sheer size of a Snake River team. And again, coached by, who I think, the great Bob Coombs, makes them a special team.
For sure. Logan, let's take a look at our 3A players to watch here. We picked one from each squad, and then I want you to kind of give me one guy you're going to be keeping an eye on this weekend. We picked one from each team, just kind of a jumping off point. Asher Williams is him from Bonners Ferry, as Ryan Skaggs said. Carson Lemoyne from Filer. He was at Wendell last year, transferred in, and Filer's glad to have him. He's got size and he's got ball handling skill. Danny Lamelli from Homedale. Jacob Cummins from Kimberly missed a chunk of the season with injury. He's back in the fold now. Justice Whitworth of Marsh Valley. He does the dirty work inside, basically, for an undersized Eagles team. Mike Foster, the big man for McCall Donnelly. He's going to be important, matching up with Ty Brown of Teton in that opening round. And then we have Luke Higginson from Snake River as well. Who's one guy you're excited to see?
Man, I look at it and I've seen pretty much everybody here play either football or basketball or both. So, you look up and down and we've seen a lot of these guys, and last year or in football, Asher Williams, he was a guy that could just take over when it needed to be done. And he's a guy that could easily step up and win the MVP award. Also, Luke Higginson, this is a kid that if he gets hot, watch out on the season. Coming in, he's hit 43 3-pointers. He's shooting 36% behind the arc. This is a guy that if he gets hot, he could push a team to a state championship from behind the arc. So I'll give you two. I would look out for those two. Lance, who you got?
Well, obviously I've watched a lot of these kids play, but the ones that I haven't watched play that I'm excited to see that I haven't watched play is Foster from McCall, and of course Asher Williams from Bonners Ferry. Watched Asher since he was just a youngster, and that old Norman Rockwell painting of those 5 basketball players standing around. You got like the really skinny one, the short one stuff. That kid was in that picture. He was just, to me, he was in that picture. He was just that kid that just came in as kind of that skinny freshman kid and stuff, and just turned into this fantastic ball player. He's a fun kid to watch, and again, very well coached as well.
Yep, that's a good list. A couple more comments for McCall Donnelly before we hit the door. Lindsay, again, Logan says, I agree, talking about it's based on matchups. You can't really look at, well, this team beat this team. And so he says he agrees with you, but at the same time, he still thinks McCall is legit. And here's Matthew Arnold. He says, watch out for Sam Penny from McCall Donnelly as well. He's going to be a problem for everyone in this tournament. We could have easily put Sam Penny on our list. I went with Mike Foster only because, Logan, I think whoever wins that battle underneath between Ty Brown of Teton and Mike Foster of McCall Donnelly, I think whoever wins that matchup inside wins the game.
Yeah.
By the way,
that game could be a state championship on its own. I feel like there is so much to look at in tip-off number 1. Like this isn't even Thursday night. This is Thursday at noon. We're getting it started off right at the 3A.
Go ahead, Lance.
You notice the smile on my face?
Yes.
Yeah, BYU is just about to knock off Kansas with 17 seconds on the clock. I just want to put that out there. Speaking of, it doesn't matter who has beat who and who hasn't. I'm just saying. On
the list of things I couldn't care less about. I'm just kidding.
I think
Lindsay,
you trace College of Idaho to beating them too, Lance. So
yeah, I know. Well, see, I've already given Logan a hard time because my Cougars knocked off his Wolfpack earlier this year by like almost 30. But you know, I mean,
come
but I'll tell you, the most important thing on our plate right now is this 3A tournament coming up, and Logan and I are pumped. We have a fun time with this tournament, and any of you that are out there, come up and say hi to us. We love it. We love talking to fans. We can't pick every team to win it, but we love these teams that are coming in. We respect the coaches, respect the players, and we love the fan bases. Please come up and say hello.
Yep. Okay. Lindsay gets the last word. I see another Snake River McCall matchup similar to the 21 and 22 seasons. A lot of old familiar faces at this 3A tournament, including Logan Green and Lance Taylor back at 3A, second year in a row.
Taylor's oldest time.
That's right. Well, guys, excited to hear you on the call for the 3A state tournament at Meridian High School. Let's go Filer, go Dad from T-Grow 215 as well. So this is going to be at Meridian High School on IdahoSports.com. Logan and Lance, thank you as always. We'll take a break and come back with our 4A state tournament preview. It's on the other side of this break. You're watching the 2024 Idaho High School boys basketball state tournament preview special on IdahoSports.com.
Dear all-wheel drive, let's show the road what we've got. Yours, Toyota.
Toyota has 22 all-wheel drive and four-wheel drive vehicles, more than any other brand. Toyota, let's go places.
Welcome back to the IdahoSports.com boys basketball state tournament preview special. Time to chop it up with the 4A state basketball tournament. Let's bring in Clay Hatfield. He's going to be part of the broadcast crew for our 4A tournament coverage on IdahoSports.com from Rocky Mountain High School. Clay, what's going on?
Not much, man. How are you? Where's Scott?
I have no idea. I don't know.
All right. What the heck?
Yeah, we'll see if we can get Scotty in here. Oh, yeah, here he is. Scott, you're a little late to the party.
Well, you know what? I have been sitting here watching the whole thing, but I forgot to enter the studio.
Nice of you to join us, Scott.
That's funny. Well, Scott Burton and Clay Hatfield will be on the call for the 4A state tournament on IdahoSports.com from Rocky Mountain High School. Let's take a look at this 4A bracket, guys. And then you tell me your initial thoughts on this thing. We'll start it right away, of course, with the 4 versus 5, Ridgeview and Twin Falls. Very interesting first round matchup between two teams that really had to fight tooth and nail to get here. Pocatello, the 1 seed. They're going to play Sandpoint, the 8, Hillcrest, the 2, Blackfoot, the 7, and then 3 versus 6, Bishop Kelly and Minico. Clay, since you were actually on time, I'll give you the opening lob here, and you tell me what's the first thing that jumps out to you in this bracket.
Well, it's the Ridgeview Twin Falls game. I'm really looking forward to that. I teach at Ridgeview, so I'm kind of being a homer on this one. But I've talked to some of the players, and they're definitely jacked about this matchup, and I am too. I think it could be the game of the day for us.
Scott, what's the first thing jumps out to you?
Well, when you look at the entire tournament, the thing that jumps out to me is a 3-peat in the championship. I mean, it's a collision course. Now, you want to get past the first round and you want to look at those games. You know what? I am interested in that Bishop Kelly Minico game. I think Pocatello and Hillcrest are by far the top 2 teams in this tournament. But when you get to number 3 and you're going to go against Minico that's got some size and some physicality, it's going to be the size and the slow pace and the defense and the physicality of Minico taking on just a bunch of athletes that Bishop Kelly trots out onto the floor every year. So first round matchup, probably that one. But the overall tournament, I mean, you can't help but see another collision course for the 3rd year in a row.
Sean Kane is the host of the East Idaho Prepcast on IdahoSports.com. Really going out on a limb here, guys. Bold prediction. Someone from East Idaho is going to win 4A, and Scott is on time for the championship call.
Take the under on that one, though, because stranger things have happened.
Yeah, let's talk.
I blew a tire one year, Brandon, before you came on board with us, and I had to have somebody come and get me off the freeway, and I think it was Lauren, and drove me 100 miles an hour to the Idaho Center, and I grabbed my headset just as the ball was getting tipped off, and here we go. It's the 4A state title game.
Really quick. Who changed your flat tire? I'll leave you with that.
Okay, that might be. Scott, you want to fess up quickly?
Yeah, well, so I left the vehicle there, and it was actually a buddy of mine's car, and he called AAA. And so he, I left, and he said, just leave it there. I'll have AAA come change it. Well, after the game, Lauren took me back, and I walk up to the car, and somebody's changing it. But I walk by, and there's like two little kids in the car that stopped to change the tire, right? And the person is kind of underneath. I can't really see him. And I walk up, and I go, hey, excuse me. And it was a lady that was independently contracted by AAA. She brought her two little kids with her, and she was pregnant. And so I'm standing there in my suit watching all of this go down. And I turned to her and I said, do I just give you my man card right now? And she just laughed, and she finished working on my car, and off she went, and I felt very worthy.
Okay. Well, that was a good story. Good detour, but we'll get back on the freeway here into this 4A bracket.
I don't think I'm qualified to do this tournament anymore.
Yeah, just turn it in. CR says Scott is 100% correct. Pokey and Hillcrest a lock. Jordan Reed says, let's go Spartans peaking at the right time. Clay, Minico came into districts as the number 4 seed. They knocked out Canyon Ridge in the championship. Canyon Ridge, the 1 seed, didn't even get to state. They turned around and lost to Twin Falls in the Crosstown Showdown last Friday night. So we've got a number 1 regular season district champ that's not even here, Clay. Uh-oh. Clay may have frozen, or maybe he can't
you broke
hear
up
us.
a little bit. Did I freeze? Yeah, you froze up a little bit there on my end.
You're good. Hey, so I was talking about Minico and how they got to state. They took out Canyon Ridge in the district championship, and then Canyon Ridge didn't even get there. They lost to Twin Falls.
Yeah, and I got to see Canyon Ridge earlier this year play against Ridgeview, and I thought Canyon Ridge had that conference locked up for sure, and to see them fall to a 4 seed, and that was something else. And then, like you said, then to have to go into that consolation game against Twin Falls and not even make it out of that. That's got to be a disappointing end to that to a great season for Canyon Ridge. But Minico, Twin Falls did what they had to do to get to the tournament, and they're here.
I guess if you're Minico, you pop that collar up, because the last time Minico won 2 district titles in a row was the late 80s. So they're partying like it's the late 80s over there in Rupert. Scott, here's a comment from Carly, from a diehard Pocatello alumni fan and coach. Absolutely atrocious that Preston isn't at state. Something's got to give about how we set up these state brackets. That said, go Thunder. I think there was a clear top 3 in 4A hoops this year. It was Hillcrest, Pocatello, and Preston. Preston swept Pokey in the regular season. They went to the pit and beat Pokey, which just doesn't happen. And then Pokey turned the tables on Preston at districts, went to Preston, won the first game, then defended their home floor. And we knew this was coming to a head. A really good team was going to be left out this year.
Oh, yeah. You know what? Preston was 1, 2, and 3 all year. And when you ask something, and I thought about this today, when you ask what jumps out at me, it's the lack of Preston. For the second year in a row, they are sitting home as one of the best teams in the tournament. And if you want to get somehow the best teams there, you got to figure this out, because right now that particular conference is a flagship cry for an expanded tournament or something to change, because it is, really, it's an injustice that Preston is sitting home when they are one of the top 2 or 3 teams in the state, without a doubt. And I agree with our listener. They should be there somehow.
Yep. And Joel says expand the tournament. Scott, I will point out, you're a 4A athletic director. Clay, you work at a 4A school as well in Ridgeview. 4A is the only classification that didn't have any play-in games to state this year. That's second year in a row they've done that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think if you look at kind of that particular situation, it begs for one. If you are going to have some teams that are in these conferences that are worthy of being there, and no disrespect to the others that got there, that got hot at the right time, or come from weaker conferences, those things are going to happen. But I think there's going to come a point where you have to sit and you have to go, human element. All right, we got some teams here. Let's give them a shot, because we want the best teams in the field. So I don't know. It's always going to be a discussion point.
Yep. And by virtue of Pocatello beating Preston so many times at districts, that vaulted them ahead of Hillcrest for that number 1 seed overall as well. I know people are saying, Hillcrest should be the 1 seed. It's really semantics. I don't think it matters that much in the scheme of things. But Clive says lots of conferences need the expansion for sure. And so here's Shug. In case Scott needs a pregnant woman to make his picks too, my wife says go with Pokey Hillcrest.
Oh man, thanks. Appreciate that.
Bravo.
I'm going to go with Pokey Hillcrest.
That's funny. Clay, you talked about Ridgeview at state. I believe this is their first trip in school history, correct?
First one, first district title, first trip. The school only opened up in 2016. Next year they're moving up to 6A. So this could be their one shot at doing something at state for quite a while to come. 6A is going to be
and big shout out to head coach Daniel Bantu in his 3rd year, getting this thing going, because I mean, coming into that district tournament game, they had never beaten Bishop Kelly. They were 0-20, and finally 0-20. Got off the snide, first winning season in school history, first conference title. But you look at that and you think, okay, they're just kind of tiptoeing into the tournament, but really they have got a really good complement of players in the paint. When you take Bowles and Tiddens, they've got some size and they can score. And we've talked about this quite a bit. If you are going to be successful at the state tournament, sure, it helps to have shooters, but you have got to have presence in the paint. You have to score at the rim. And this Ridgeview team has got a couple of big dudes that can do that.
And looking at the bottom half of the bracket here, Clay, Bishop Kelly and Minico, those are 2 teams that, Minico's got size with Dominic Soto and some other guys. And Bishop Kelly's got, Rakeem Johnson, who's only 6'3", but I mean, he's a Division I offensive lineman, for crying out loud. He is the enforcer in the middle for BK.
Yeah, going to Michigan State. So congratulations to that young man. But I think if there's going to be an upset in the first round, it's going to be that 3-6. I think Minico is hot at the right time. I think they're playing well right now. They have the size, like you said. Bishop Kelly might be still reeling a little bit from losing that district championship. So if I think there's going to be an upset, I think that's going to be that 3-6 matchup right there.
And Scott, Minico kind of leans into that right there. They have been the premier football team in District 4 for the last several years, and it's a lot of those football guys, and they go, hey, we know we're football guys playing hoops. Let's lean into it. Let's be tough. Let's be physical. And their first-year coach, Doug Manning, longtime assistant, they've kind of identified and adopted that mantra, and it's worked for them.
Well, it is. And, football sets the tone for really most of the year in boys sports. The attitude, the atmosphere, the toughness. And this is what this Minico team does have, is they are tough. They're big, they're physical, they play defense. I mean, they still have that mentality with, Brady Trinkle was their coach last year. Doug Manning was his assistant. Now Manning is the guy. And it's really just kind of more getting used to each other, but that physicality is there for Minico. And once they kind of got rolling and gelling, they got it figured out, and they've got a couple of pieces on the guard line that can really help them out. I mean, Riker Stimson can flat out shoot the ball and get it done, and he can get hot at any time. And you factor in, a couple of the Waymans in there as well. They've got a decent guard line, but they're going to need Soto inside to make a difference, at the rim, not just being a rim protector defensively, but he's going to have to score some points as well. And then the other thing that Minico is going to have to be careful of is they're not very deep on the guard line. If they get themselves into a little bit of foul trouble or whatever the case is on the guard line, there's not a whole lot of people lined up, next man up on that guard line for Minico. But you're right, Clay. They come in playing as well as anybody, being the 4th seed out of this conference, and then just all of a sudden catching fire, lightning in a bottle, and boom, they're district champs.
Yeah, and Bishop Kelly has guards out the wazoo, right? Cooper Kamen and Mason Subo Moret, and just all these guys. And they did go 18-5 this year. That's nothing to sneeze at either. Courtney says she's with you, Clay. 3 over the 6. Now she says she might be biased. She's got 2 sons starting for Minico, Carson and Nate Wayman. So
yeah. And those are a couple of guys that can really do some damage, for Minico. I mean, they're some good players.
Yep, for sure. And how about this, guys? Coach Daniel Vint from Ridgeview in the chat. Go Warhawks. Appreciate the coverage. Thanks a lot, Coach Vint. We appreciate it. Okay, guys, let's take a look at our 4A players to watch. We picked one guy from each team just as a starting point of conversation here. And I want to pick your brains on who you're most excited to see this weekend. But here's what we got for the list. Rakeem Johnson from Bishop Kelly, we mentioned. Colby Bodkin from Blackfoot. We haven't really talked about Blackfoot and Sandpoint. They come in as the 7 and 8 seeds, really playing with nothing to lose. Isaac Davis from Hillcrest, of course. I feel like he's been at state for like 20 years now. He's been there since his freshman year. He's finally a senior. Riker Stimson from Minico. Julian Bowie from Pocatello, the Boise State commit. Tucker Tiddins from Ridgeview. Parker Childs from Sandpoint. He's a coach's kid. Brian Childs, the head coach there. And then Jared Mix from Twin Falls. Clay, who's one guy you're really excited to watch at this tournament?
I'm excited to see Tucker Tiddins from Ridgeview. Not just because I'm a Ridgeview guy.
Homer.
But I think I know. But I think if he can put Ridgeview on his shoulders, they could be the dark horse of this tournament.
Okay. Scott, you got a guy you're looking forward to seeing?
You know what? Gosh dang it. I got to go with Mr. Obvious, and that's going to be Isaac Davis, followed by Julian Bowie. I was on the call last year in the state title game. I was on the call 2 years ago for the state title game between these guys, and I've just watched these two duke it out, and Hillcrest has won them both. And when they won 2 years ago, we all looked at each other and just said, this is going to be the same game next year and maybe the next year. And boy, we were absolutely right, because it's centered around Isaac Davis and Julian Bowie. And here we are. Davis, arguably one of the best big men in the state. I mean, he's headed to BYU to play. And he doesn't score a ton, but he does so many other things. I mean, he's 6'7". His court vision and IQ are off the charts. He passes well at, probably the best passing big man in the tournament. And then you get a guy like Julian Bowie, and we watched him single-handedly put his team on his back and just start bombing away. Boise State got him for a reason, so when you look at those players, I'm really looking at those two in the title game. And gosh, and I'm not dismissing anybody else, but it's hard to ignore that. And Tiddins was another guy I had my eye on too, because I'm really interested to see kind of how that size plays a part in this tournament, because size in the paint matters.
And along those lines, I think the most important guy in this whole tournament is Gage Ontiveros for Pocatello. He's 6'10". Yeah. He started his career at Burley, moved to Pokey last year. Last year, he was just a tall guy. He's developed some skill this year. Has he elevated his game enough to neutralize Isaac Davis if those teams meet up again? And that's going to be the big X factor, I think.
Yes, and I'm glad you brought that up, because I remember watching that game last year, and really it did come down to Isaac Davis versus Ontiveros in the paint. And Davis was just a man-child. Just physically stronger and just had his way. Ontiveros was tall, but he didn't have the stature to stand up to a guy like Davis. But I think this year he's gotten better. He was able to really play a part offensively for Pocatello. In fact, he dumped 30 versus Highland this year, and he's a guy that can carry them at times. And so he has gotten better, and that matchup right there, if it happens, is going to be really a fun one to watch.
Yep. Shout out to Ike Sutton from Hillcrest too. Fast and really the commander of the team. That's from Joel, who did a couple of Hillcrest games for us this year on IdahoSports.com. So he would know for sure. All right. It's going to be a really fun 4A tournament. Rocky Mountain High School, the site. Scott Burton, Clay Hatfield, looking forward to your coverage on IdahoSports.com. Thanks for stopping by to break down the 4A brackets. All right.
Thanks for having us out.
All right. Appreciate it.
Okay, we'll take one final break and come back with the 5A state tournament breakdown right after this break. You're watching the 2024 Idaho High School Boys Basketball State Tournament Preview Special on IdahoSports.com.
Dear all-wheel drive, let's show the road what we've got. Yours, Toyota.
Toyota has 22 all-wheel drive and four-wheel drive vehicles, more than any other brand. Toyota. Let's go places.
Welcome back to the IdahoSports.com Boys Basketball State Tournament Preview Special. One final classification to knock out here. It's our Class 5A breakdown. Let's bring in our broadcast team, Lucas Gebhardt and Ryan Luke. Lucas, where are you broadcasting from? Like your closet or something? Where you at?
It's bachelor night tonight, Brandon. So I've been exiled to the bedroom.
Okay. Hey, priorities, right?
Yep, exactly.
We'll find out who gets the rose at the end of this 5A state tournament. Ryan, good to see you as well.
And in case you were wondering, I'm in my office.
Yes. Looks a little more professional for sure. You got some nice artwork on the back wall there too. It looks really nice. Yeah. All right, guys. We can go as long as we want. Usually we lead the show with 5A, and so we're like, okay, we got to stay on schedule. But I mean, we could talk for 3 hours. No, we're not going to go that long. We will take all your comments though. If you're a 5A diehard and you want to give your favorite player, your favorite team, your favorite coach a shout out, you want to ask us a question, throw it in the chat. We'll throw it up on the screen, and we'll chop it up with all the 5A fans. Let's take a look at this 5A bracket. And start breaking it down. These games will take place at the Ford Idaho Center, and then we'll have some consolation games at Rocky Mountain and Ridgeview as well. Right away, 4 versus 5, Madison and Capital. And then it's number 1, Owyhee, and number 8, Middleton. District rivals there from the Southern Idaho Conference. District rivals in the 2 versus 7, Coeur d'Alene and Lake City. That was the girls' championship. It's a boys' first-round matchup. And then the 3 and 6, Timberline and Eagle. Ryan, what is the top thing that jumps out to you when you look at this bracket?
I guess the top thing that to me, when I look at the top half of the bracket, it's got to be the fact that Owyhee could play Madison in the semifinal. I mean, that is, or in the second round. It would be, to me, those are two colossals. Those are two titans that bring a ton of experience and some of the top players in the state. And we get the pleasure. In fact, I would even argue the top 4 teams in terms of rankings, those top 4 teams, and I don't want to say they're interchangeable because you'll get my thoughts a little bit more on that, but the fact that we can get a second round matchup between Madison and Owyhee, I mean, get ready to live, guys.
Yeah, and here you see the call right here. 5A fans, tell us your thoughts of how the 5A bracket was seeded. Sean Kane says Madison should be a 2. And he also adds, hard to understand max preps in the 5A bracket. Nonetheless, should be fantastic games. Lucas, what's the top thing that jumps out to you when you look at the bracket?
Well, kind of the same thing that stood out to Sean there. How in the world is Madison a 4 seed? How good is this bracket when you have Madison who comes into state with a 22-2 record, and their 2 losses are to Owyhee and Coronia Centennial, which is out of California, and a dang good California team. That's it. Those are their only 2 losses. And, I get it. They played Owyhee back in December, but they played Coronia Centennial pretty close. Owyhee blew them out, but I think, a second round matchup with the Storm, I think will be much closer than that first matchup they had. And that game, technically, I guess, in neutral court as it was in a tournament, but that was played at Owyhee High School. So how does that play out again on a neutral floor potentially? But, you look at this Madison team, and I think Madison has a legitimate shot to win this tournament. And I think you look at how this bracket is stacked up, and, Owyhee is Owyhee, and they're number 1 for a reason. They've been the number 1 team in Idaho for the entire year for a reason. But to me, I look at the top half of this bracket, and that is one of the worst ways that could play out for Owyhee, because you have a very compelling matchup with Middleton, who their old coach used to coach at Middleton. Middleton's kind of coming in playing with house money a little bit here, and they were picked to finish, I think, 10th in the SIC, 10 out of 13 teams in the SIC to begin this season. Now here they are in the state tournament. Middleton has already beaten Meridian, which was a top 5 team. Meridian's 2-0 at the district tournament, so they're not in the state tournament, but Meridian was a really good team, and Middleton already beat them. So I think that's a really compelling matchup in that quarterfinal matchup. And then if Owyhee does get past Middleton, well, here comes Madison, which, as you can see in the comments, some people think of Madison, and I'm one of them too. I think Madison's the second best team in this tournament, and that's potentially a semifinals matchup.
Yeah, a lot of comments to get to here, Ryan, and then I'll bring in. Joel says, agreed, Madison, a strong 4 seed. Saw those dudes play, and they hit everything. They're fast in transition, strong down low, very few weaknesses. PR leans the other way. He says, good basketball, a lot of talent, will be fun to watch. However, no suspense in this tourney, unfortunately. Hawaii breezes through. I don't know. Nate says, how packed will the Idaho Center be come Friday night when it's Hawaii versus Madison? Yeah, that's going to be standing room only. Michelle Apple, Max Preps is the worst on feeding. Riker Apple, of course, a key player for Middleton. And a good reminder, Middleton, Hawaii only beat Middleton by 11 points in the regular season. That SIC tournament, Ryan, was bananas. You had number 2 Meridian go 2-0. Getting auto bids were number 1 Hawaii and number 3 Timberline. That makes sense. But then number 6 Capital and number 8 Middleton. Lucas, you talked about Middleton was picked 10th in the preseason. They took 8th in the regular season as an 8 seed. They got to the semifinals. Ryan, the SIC was a jumbled up mess this year, and we have some really good teams that are stuck at home and some really good battle tested teams that are here at state competing also.
Yeah, and the SIC top to bottom plays phenomenal basketball, and it was not only because I was just looking at the rosters and doing the analysis and looking at the data. They're all kind of the same size. They have a 6'6" guy, they have a 6'5" guy, there might be a 6'7" guy here and there, but they're all about the same. But they really do play a good brand of basketball. And the thing that I want to point out is this is not just a one-on-one matchup game. It's not like a, hey, you know what? Clear out, let me take them on. Everybody moves without the ball really, really well. I did a Capital game at the beginning of the season. There was a preseason tournament right around Christmas time, and I saw Baker City come in and just thump Capital. I mean, thumped them. They made them look bad. These are little farm boys, not even little, but they made Capital look bad. Since that time, Capital has turned around and got hot at the right time, specifically in the SIC tournament. And Eagle's a team that, if we're looking at it, I think they're the ones that's going to be the least talked about. Eagle always has talent. This is the 5th time in a row they're in the state tournament. They have a 6'7" and a 6'6". Cal Hewish, a big football guy. He plays like a beast down low for him, but he's not going to get a lot of attention. Why? Because Eagle is yet to put something together and make a strong run. I don't know if they do it this year, but I think that that's one of those matchups that we have to watch out for. And then getting back to the whole SIC thing, honestly, it's the team, and then it's the rest of them could have been interchangeable. Now, let's talk a little controversy here real quick. So on Sunday, I was talking to one of the players from, and I'm not going to name names, from Middleton, and he got a text from the coach saying, hey, hold on. We don't know if the Max Preps rankings are right because some of the inputs were wrong. And that goes back to the whole, is Max Preps the best way to go? Could we put something together? Because if you look at the algorithm that they used to define it, to stack the rankings, it wouldn't be that hard to do it at the state level or to do it, however level you want to do it, because they measure 3 teams deep, win versus win, the matchups 3 deep, and then they go the wins, losses versus those teams. So I think theoretically we could do that. Now, my option for all those people, and during the 4A we talked about this, you look at Preston got left out, right? And in this case, I'd say Meridian was probably your best team to get left out in this case. There needs to be an at-large poll committee bid of some sorts to get a team in, because then you get Meridian, who always plays well in the tournament.
Now, I think at 5A, I feel less bad for Meridian because, District 3 does get up to 6 bids potentially to get to state. If you can't be one of the 6 best, and they had a couple of just tight games, and I don't know what happened there. Okay, let's talk about Hawaii here, Lucas, where you and I did the 5A state tournament last year. We sat there and said the same thing coming in. Hey, Hawaii is kind of the favorite. Lake City also is very good. And Hawaii played Meridian in the first round and got tight in the fourth quarter. This was the last tournament before a shot clock was implemented. They actually started stalling in the fourth quarter, which was very unusual to see. And they lost right away in the opening round. It was shocking to see, and almost like last year where Lake City was upset by Centennial 2 years ago and then came back and won the title. I think that first round loss last year will help fuel Hawaii a little bit this year.
I agree. Yeah. And for whatever reason, it's always that first game that just kind of trips teams up for whatever reason. And that was the spot Lake City was in a few years ago. That was the spot Hawaii was in last year. But here's the thing with having so many SIC teams in this tournament. I think we had six SIC teams in the tournament last year, if I remember it right. Hawaii is run through this regular season. They've beat Idaho opponents by almost 30 points a game, right? So Hawaii is running through their opponents right now. But what happens when it's the second, third, fourth time you played a team. I mean, you've seen them before. You know their strengths and weaknesses, and especially you get a team like Middleton that sort of feels like they don't have a whole lot to lose here. They got a little chip on their shoulder, as Ryan talked about with the max prep rankings, the old coach and all that kind of going into it. That's why I think that is a really compelling first round matchup for Hawaii. Now I'll say this. I think Hawaii is going to come out and play some of their best basketball of the year during this tournament. And when Hawaii plays their best basketball, there's not a team in Idaho that can beat them. And I think a reason that they're going to do that is because of what happened to them last year. And this is almost Hawaii got better from last year. They return I think they return all 5 of their starters, right? And then they add 2 transfers in Logan Housefight, who was an all-state kid at Mountain View as a freshman last year. And then they also add another transfer in from Oregon, who was an all-conference player last year too. So, I mean, this team is just deep. And if Hawaii plays the way that they can play, they'll win this tournament. And, but the question is, do they trip up? Do they hit that little bit of a lull and then find themselves in a close game like they did last year? And if they find themselves in a close game, how do they react to it? Because they really haven't been in a ton of close games outside of, a few games that they played back in December against some out-of-state teams. But, can that pressure start to build against Hawaii, and how do they react to it? You saw it a little bit in the district championship game where they played Timberline at Idaho Central Arena in downtown. And I thought they reacted to that pretty well. So I would look for them to do something pretty similar here this weekend.
Yeah, it was only an 8-point win over Timberline in that SIC championship last week at ICCU Arena there in downtown Boise. And we'll go ahead.
Yeah, and they led by double digits at the time. And Timberline kind of made a little bit of a push. I think Timberline cut it to about 5 or 6. But then Liam Campbell just hit a couple shots and back up to 10, and Hawaii cruised. So,
yep. Last point on the top half of the bracket, and then we'll get to the bottom. Madison. So last year, Lake City rolled to the title, right? Just dominated everybody. The one team that gave them a push and gave them a fight was Madison, Lucas. If you remember in the semis last year, it was a 7-8 point game towards the end of the third quarter, and Madison just ran out of steam. They're not a particularly deep team, but man, the guys they have with Barrett Wilson inside and then Nash Humphreys, who's a spark plug out there at point guard. Madison's very top heavy, but man, they got the talent to potentially, if it is them in Hawaii, I'd be very interested in that matchup. So.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah, they return all 5 starters, but again, like you said, it's a 3-day tournament. You're playing 3 games in 3 days, assuming you win your first. So I think last year they really only played 6 guys really last year, and that 6 guys was only playing a couple minutes. So,
well, Brandon, you make a good point too, because and Lucas, it's the same thing, right? In terms of depth, because we saw this at the 4A. Lucas and I did the 4A girls tournament, and Shelley rested everybody until the state championship game, and so they were fresh in that state championship game versus Skyview. And I think that you're going to see a little bit of that if games start getting out of control. And again, we're going to talk about conditioning and what that looks like and how the players get to this point. But if it's a dogfight every single game and you have to put your top 5, your starting 6, your 6 rotation, play them the whole time, that's going to play out on day 3. So the question for Hawaii in this situation, or Madison, or whoever runs it, but particularly those two, is how much can they rest in that first round? That first game is going to be very indicative of what we're going to see down the road. If they can play some folks, some of the other players, and get them some rest time, I think that they'll be a little bit more fresh going into that state, the state championship.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that management works for sure. Let's go to the bottom half of the bracket. Coeur d'Alene and Lake City, the 2 and the 7. Timberline and Eagle, the 3 and the 6. A team that plays 9 or 10 guys pretty regularly, night in, night out, is Coeur d'Alene, the number 2 seed from the north. Coach John Adams has a system. They play full court pressure defense. They want to get you to commit mistakes and turn the ball over, and they'll just run guys at you. They have like a nonstop surplus of guys that come in off the bench to make life difficult for sure. Sam Buffington in the chat says, "Hi, Lucas. Also want to give a shout out to head coach John Adams at Coeur d'Alene High School for guiding his Vikings to the state tournament." Lucas, I think Coeur d'Alene is a team that they're kind of an unknown, right? They've kind of just been hanging out up north. They've played some really good Washington teams. They've played Lake City and Post Falls and Lewiston this year, but they're kind of the ultimate wild card in this tournament.
Yeah, and I think you talk to people up north, and they kind of saw the changing of the guard up north a little bit with Lake City graduating just about everyone from that state championship team last year and losing their head coach, right? So I think some people in Northern Idaho kind of saw the writing on the wall with Coeur d'Alene taking control of the district this year, and that's exactly what happened. Coeur d'Alene's a legit team, 20-3 coming into this state tournament. They've or an extremely well-traveled team. I thought it was interesting. They played high schools from 5 different states. They played high schools from Hawaii, Washington, California, Nevada, and Idaho. That you just don't see that a whole lot. So I thought that was kind of an interesting little tidbit. But here's my thing with Coeur d'Alene. I think experience is going to matter in this tournament. There are a ton of teams that are back here for the second, third year in a row with their core players coming back with them. Owaihi's one of them. Madison is another. Timberline is another one. Eagle returns a couple players as well. Whereas for Coeur d'Alene, they haven't been to the state tournament since 2012. So my question there is, how are they going to react to the big stage? And that's kind of where the unknown is for me. I think Coeur d'Alene's got a lot of talent. But again, compelling first round matchups, and they have Lake City, which is a team that they've already seen a couple times this year in the first round. So, Lake City's familiar with them. So Coeur d'Alene and these teams from up north sometimes have that little bit of an edge because they're usually matched up against an SIC school in that first round matchup. Not the case this year. They're matched up against Lake City, who's playing some of their best basketball of the year right now.
Couple of key guys to keep an eye on from Coeur d'Alene. Logan Orchard, probably going to be the Inland Empire League Player of the Year. He was kind of the preseason pick amongst the coaches. Gunnar Larson, great wing, can get to the basket and slash. Caden Simmons, his mom is Nicole Simmons. She just won a state championship on the girls' side, coaching the Coeur d'Alene girls. He's only a sophomore, and he's a walking bucket. And then kind of their enforcer inside is Kai Wheeler. He's a football guy. He played linebacker on the football team and slot receiver, and he's a 6'6", just brick house inside for the Vikings down low. Those are kind of some key guys to keep an eye on. And then, Ryan, let's talk about Timberline, because they've got, Liam Campbell, of course, is a great player, but in terms of pure scoring and shooting the ball, Alex Coe from Timberline, that dude can flat shoot. It's really fun to watch him play.
Yeah, and Timberline's a culmination of years of putting it together, and from specifically the Boise School District and grabbing players and getting it together. And Timberline put it together this year. In fact, we talked about the SIC championship game where they only lost by 8 points, and I think that is very indicative of this whole season, because Timberline does a lot of things really well. They can score when they need to score. They're solid from the outside. Defensively, they play you tough. They're a very fundamentally sound team, and they have to go across the board. And that's what they have to be, because they play in the SIC. In order to succeed in the SIC, you really, really have to do that well. And so I like Timberline. I don't, I talked about my top 4, and I said the top one obviously is going to be Waihi for me. But then we talked about Madison, Coeur d'Alene, and Timberline, and then kind of flip-flop those 3. I don't know if Madison's a clear-cut number 2 seed, should have been the potential clear-cut, ended up with the number 4. I think Timberline is that sneaky number 2 second-best team in the tournament. And if they put it all together, and they're the bottom half, we could end up seeing another SIC championship game in the state championship.
Yeah, that would be a really fun atmosphere Saturday night at the Idaho Center. For sure. I feel pretty good about after District 3 got skunked in the girls tournaments. I feel pretty good. At least a couple are going to be there in the boys tournaments for sure. All right, guys, let's take a look at our 5A players to watch. We picked one from each school. We could have gone 3, 4, 5 guys deep, just kind of a starting point here, but here's what we came up with. David McNamara from Capital, silky smooth forward underneath. Logan Orchard from Coeur d'Alene. Russell Gibson, the point guard from Eagle. Reese Strawn from Lake City. He was the sixth man on last year's championship team and pretty much the only guy that's back this year. He's had to take on more of a load. Barrett Wilson from Madison. Riker Apple from Middleton. Liam Campbell, of course, the USC commit from Hawaii. And then Alex Coe from, that says Timberline is where he's at. Ryan, give me one guy you're most excited to see here in this tournament.
Liam Campbell. Sorry, I'm boring. I just want to see, on the biggest stage, how does he perform? And I have no doubt that he's going to elevate his game. But I think that he's going to be playing in the Big 10, Big 20. He's going to be playing in the Big 20 next year. And so, we got to see if he can ball out. And quite frankly, that's a representation. I mean, you have a couple of big guys, Hillcrest, Isaac Davis going to BYU playing in the Big 12, one of the best conferences out there. See how he does. That'll kind of give a litmus test to the Idaho, how we play basketball here. And Liam Campbell playing in another fantastic conference at USC that's jumping over to the Big 10/20 or whatever they are at this point. And I just want to see how he performs on the biggest stage.
Yeah, interesting point about the D1 players here because like you said, Isaac Davis, BYU, Big 12, Liam Campbell, USC, now in the Big 10. And then we got a couple of Mountain West players, right? Julian Bowie from Pocatello committed to Boise State, BSU, and then Case Wynot from Lapwai going to Utah State. So, there's going to be some high-end talent on display at this state tournament for sure. Lucas, who's the guy you're most excited to see here?
Yeah, there's all these teams are just so deep, right? So, Capital's got 4 or 5 guys that could lead the team in scoring on any given night. Middleton kind of the same way. Liam Campbell, obvious choice. Who's not excited to watch him? I'm going to go Alex Coe for Timberline. And then for all the reasons that you kind of hit on, Brandon, you and I watched him last year in the state tournament. Just an electric scorer that can really keep Timberline in some games. And one thing we didn't touch on quite for Timberline too is second best scoring defense in this tournament behind Hawaii. So that's just another reason I'm with you guys. I like Timberline to potentially get to the state championship as well. I'm going to go off the chart though. I'm going to go Nash Humphreys from Madison. And I know you didn't have him on there. You had Wilson on there, but Humphreys is a guy that can just carry this Madison offense, averages almost 20 points a game, 3 steals, and 4.5 assists per game. So he kind of really is a big reason that this Madison offense goes. And the thing with Madison too is we didn't talk a lot about Capital, but Capital's deep. Capital's got 4 or 5 guys that can score. And like I said, they got 4 or 5 guys that can lead the Capital in scoring it on any given night. And Ryan touched on it earlier that, Shelley in our 4A tournament was able to manage their minutes a little bit. I'm not so sure that Madison's going to be able to do that on Thursday. Capital's a good team. Capital's very deep. So with that shorter lineup, how do they play into Friday, Saturday, looking ahead to potential matchups? So I'm going to go Nash Humphreys. And just because if you look towards a potential state semifinals matchup with Hawaii, I'd be excited to watch him just watch him try to keep pace with that Hawaii offense. Yeah, they go inside with Wilson all the time, but Humphreys he could tee it up from the logo, man. He's got a good looking shot, and I think he's going to make some pretty electrifying shots in this tournament.
He's fearless. He's not the biggest guy on the court, but man, his heart is as big as anybody out there. Sean Kane says, yeah, Nash is fun to watch, speed for days. And one last comment here from Instagram, guys, from a Madison fan, from MHS Bobcat Cards. Madison beating Pocatello by 25 and being ranked at 4 in 5A is crazy. So we'll see, hey, you're going to have to take out Hawaii at some point along the way anyways. You're just going to get that opportunity one round earlier, which I don't know. We talk about Madison and their lack of depth. I think you'd almost prefer to get Hawaii out of the way early, right?
Yep. Yeah, that's exactly.
Totally agree. Yeah.
You got to be fresh for them. So as fresh as you can be. So I think that's it couldn't have played out better for Madison if they had their pick.
It's going to be a really fun 5A state tournament. Lucas Gebhardt and Ryan Luke will be on the call for all of it from the Idaho Center. It'll be really fun to see it all unfold this weekend here on IdahoSports.com. Gentlemen, as always, thank you for the time. We appreciate it. Lucas, Hopefully the Bachelor's over by now. You can go back into your living room.
I think they're just getting started.
Ryan, have a fun time this weekend.
Let's go.
All right. Hey, big thanks to everybody that tuned in live tonight as well, and all the fans that contributed to the conversation. This is who we do it for. It's for those parents, those athletes, those coaches, those fans statewide that just want to hear somebody break down what's going to happen at state. And, we don't get all our predictions right, but that's what it's fun to break down the brackets and talk about the matchups. And it's going to be a lot of fun to see how it all shakes out. Of course, IdahoSports.com is going to be your go-to place. You can tune into every single game for free. We have a constantly updating scoreboard, so you can kind of ping pong from game to game and scoreboard watch. I don't know if you guys do that. I'm always doing that in the background while we're broadcasting at state. I'm checking in on scores from the other tournaments. It gets to be a lot of fun this time of year, Lucas.
Yeah, for sure. Had a blast doing 5A with you last year. It was a really fun tournament, especially Thursday. That's the thing with 5A, man. You never know. All these SSU teams, like I said, they've seen each other just a billion times, and you just never know what's going to happen at state. So, it should be a lot of fun this weekend.
For sure. One last request before we duck out of here. Not everybody could tune in live tonight. They're going to want to tune in tomorrow or maybe even Thursday morning as they're driving over. If you could hit that like button and share this when it's all said and done, everybody will be able to find it a little easier amongst all of their social media scrolling. But thanks for tuning in tonight, everybody. For Lucas and Ryan and Scott and Clay and Logan and Lance and Paul and Lauren and Gary and Glenn and Joel, I'm Brandon Baney, and we will see you starting Thursday from all throughout the Treasure Valley for the boys basketball state tournaments, live and free on IdahoSports.com. Thanks for tuning in, everybody.